You are listening to the ReRACEables Podcast. Welcome back to the ReRACEables Podcast. We are moments away from episode 11, the final four. Current status, myself and Josh tied for first in our rankings with 14. Lizzy close behind with 18. Nicole trailing there at 21. Final four. It's like...
I mean, all four competitors are so strong. I'm so excited. I don't know who's going home, to be honest. I really don't. If any team went home, I wouldn't be surprised.
Lizzy, what do you expect from tonight's episode?
I think if any team did go home, I would be surprised. I feel like they're all so strong, and it's hard not to think about who the top three are going to be. That's kind of where my mind is at. I'm sure that's where everybody's mind is at.
Of course. Nicole, top three. Does it include your favorite?
No. No, it doesn't. I want more lying, more deceit, more betrayal, more drama.
Well, Final Four, tough to not have drama here with only 4 teams left and only 3 tickets to be punched to the final 3, the final legs. Let's go around the horn. First and last, Lizzy, we'll start with you.
First in this leg, I think Riley and Madison. I don't know. I feel like they're on the uptrend, I think. And last, I think it's going to be Gary and D'Angelo. They've been a little rocky for a few weeks.
I second that. I agree. I think with the theory of going out as long, low, or sorry, wow.
Slow?
Steady?
Yeah, a slow and steady
Tortoise
decline.
style.
Yeah. A slow decline, I do think that it's going to be Gary and D'Angelo. They're the team that's been falling to the back of the pack recently.
Sorry, Tom.
Yeah.
Nikki?
I think Hung and CHEE are out, and Riley Madison win the leg.
So a couple weeks ago, it was a hot take. Last week, it was a lukewarm take. At this point, folks, it's a cold take. Hung and CHEE last place. I'm also leaning that way because of their live chat after the episode. I'm a little skeptical. Maybe they were putting out some foreshadowing there of they're going to be out. Maybe they want to avoid the interviews. Maybe they want to avoid some of the hubbub. Or they want to embrace it. They're in the final 3. I'm reading the tea leaves, and I'm thinking it's potentially their exit interview. So I'll go there. And then, you know what? I'm going Gary and D'Angelo. I think the primetime players get the W here. And I think that they show the world, a.k.a. Josh and Lizzy here, that they're to be reckoned with.
All right. Sure.
So, there we go. About to watch the episode. We'll be back.
Great cross-off, if you ask me.
We're back. We're back here on the ReRACEables post-episode. Lot to get into. But... first, our cross-off, Gary and D'Angelo are out.
Wow.
Tough one for myself. That puts me not in a good spot.
Oh, 13.
Yeah, Gary and D'Angelo 6.
8.
Lizzy had them 7th, so she's down to
11.
Wow, second place.
And Nicole had them first as well.
Wow.
So we have a winner, folks, for a top 3. Our lowest score in these final 3 rankings is Josh with an 8. Give it up for Josh.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the Academy.
It's very impressive.
Josh had his number 1, Riley Madison, number 2, Will and James, and number 5, Hung and CHEE.
The lowest ranked Hung and CHEE.
Yeah.
Or highest ranked.
Or highest ranked, yeah. Lowest number.
Lizzy second with 11. She had number 1, Will and James, number 4, Riley Madison, number 6, Hung and CHEE. I dropped to 3rd. Number 2, Riley Madison, number 3, Will and James, number 8, Hung and CHEE. And Nicole is 4th with 20, 2, Riley Madison, 7, Will and James, 11, Hung and CHEE. Yeah. Well, congrats to Josh.
So Josh has won the first of what our 2 winners could be.
Correct.
So now it's down to me and
Only
Josh.
us 2. Yeah.
He has Riley and Madison placed first. I have Will and James placed first. If neither of those teams come in first in the finale, there's only one winner. It's Josh by having by the points total of the power rankings.
Yeah.
But if Will and James win, then I get a win.
We started talking before we came back on about, wouldn't you want Gary and D'Angelo there if you think they're a weak team, and if you're in this alliance and yada yada yada? Why? If we're saying that, but that's not what happened, why?
They're not a weak team. I just think they're a dumb team. If you're looking at like athletics, they are absolutely the hardest team to beat. Absolutely, they're going to beat anybody in any physical challenge. I don't want them there for that. However, we all know that the last leg is a series of competitions, and it does include smarts, and it does include
Memory challenges?
memory challenges. Yeah, these types of things. So I guess if it was another leg, I would be more intimidated by the physical ability, but from this leg, I know that I would want them there because they're not going to be able to solve the memory challenges. And we saw that they can't solve the memory challenges tonight. So I think it was a testament to it.
Do you think the alliance, though, was stronger than that logic? Nobody was thinking the way that
That's
you
what
thought.
that's what the question.
that's
That's what I'm
true.
saying. I don't mean they're a weak team.
Yeah.
They got to the Final Four.
Yeah.
They have obvious strengths, whatever. But
So then the answer is yes. The alliance was stronger than that line of thinking.
I feel like
Shame.
D'Angelo and Gary were closer than any of the teams in ordering them.
They were one off
Actually.
the last one.
I guess the nature of the final challenge and the way it played out, was there really room for them to even take the logical approach and keep Gary and D'Angelo around and break, like Riley Madison figured it
No.
out, right? So is the logic was in their hands, was it not?
No, they only figured it out because Hung and Chee told them.
So Hung and Chee then, okay,
Yeah.
let's go to them.
Yeah.
They figure it out. They read the clue, whatever. They know the order.
Mm-hmm.
Is it in their best interest to help their alliance and get 2 strong
That's
teams,
true.
Riley Madison and Will and James, through? Or to help Gary and D'Angelo knowing that they can beat them?
I think they shouldn't have helped anybody. This is the leg where it was clearly stated at the beginning from Phil saying, think about if you're going to help anyone. And up until this challenge, nobody helped anybody. Everybody was totally on their own. And then when nobody knew what to do, they defaulted to what they knew, which was to help each other because they knew Hung and Chee were going to figure it out and she would tell them.
Also, if you're going to use the alliance to get to the mat, what's the difference if and then lose it, right? What's the difference if you lose the alliance right before you get to the mat? Like it's not like you have any obligation to get the other 2 people there.
No.
Because as soon as you get there, the alliance is going to be off.
Right.
Doesn't actually matter.
So you're talking about Hung and Chee figuring it out and telling Riley and Madison who get there first.
Why did they tell them? Because now if the alliance is off, then you only gave up your own position to get them there.
Mm-hmm.
If it doesn't matter now, what are you doing it for?
Right, like who cares about getting to the top 3? Right, if you're Hung and Chee, so are we all in agreement that the play for Hung and Chee would have been finish the challenge, tell Gary and D'Angelo, tell Will and James, and keep Riley and Madison out of it?
No, I'm not in agreement. I think Hung and Chee should have figured it out and then not told anyone and then
not
left.
told anyone.
Yeah,
I agree.
that's
I do
what they
agree.
should have done.
And then increase, because it increases their lead
Well,
as the team number 1.
It increases their lead and it lets everybody fight for themselves, which nobody has been doing this entire race because this alliance is so strong.
Yeah.
Nobody's run their own race this season.
And I wasn't sure if when Riley and Madison got there first, Phil did say something about like, oh, so you did it by helping other people. I thought for a second that there may have been some penalty.
Right, so did
To
I.
helping.
And I thought
that
Gary and
too.
D'Angelo were going to walk in there after the penalty
Yeah.
and be first because they didn't take any
Yeah.
help or get any help.
That would have been awesome.
That would have
A
been
2-hour
They should
penalty.
have done that.
Right.
But then they all would have been,
well,
I don't know, what would have happened?
I would want to go back and see what Phil's exact words were Because if it's not clearly spelled out, there'd be a penalty. Then I don't think. Do you know what I mean?
there-
Because if he was like, it's strongly encouraged, or I would advise you to not, then you can't really turn around and say, well, 30-minute penalty. Do you know what I mean? But if he was like, in this leg, you cannot help another team, that's different.
No, he didn't. He just said you shouldn't help another.
Yeah, yeah,
this is the time
I
to
can't
do it.
remember what he said, but-
if it like has to be clearly stated in the rule book or whatever. And since it wasn't, it was kind of like a thing the producers did in the moment
Yep.
It was.
because they
It definitely
saw
was. Sounds
people
like it.
helping.
It was.
Yep.
So
It
they
was.
couldn't actually put a penalty in.
Right.
Yes, that was it.
They can just say, "Oh,
Yeah.
we strongly discourage you."
Yeah.
Right, and at what point do they just maybe have the ability even to throw in a challenge at the mat or something like that for those teams to complete to try because they helped each other or something like that? Because how do you really stop teams from helping each other?
The game should stop. Like, you're stupid for helping somebody else.
Well, true, but when I talk
They're
to
not though, because they all ended
They
up
all
in the
made it.
final.
But
Right.
they
You should do it. You should find two other teams that are the most trustworthy or have the most complementary personalities, whatever, that you think are worth keeping till the end. And then just ride that out and help each other and go with that. Does it make for good television?
No, awful television.
So what's awful about it? Because I agree with you.
It's not fun. There's no competition. When you're just helping each other, then like the sauerkraut challenge was brilliant. Brilliant, having to scale down and look at these flashing letters and then put all the letters together. So smart.
And if you didn't get it, you had to go all the way
and you had
back
to
up.
go back up the stairs, walk all the way up, and rappel down face forward. Like, that is brilliant. And it just killed... I think it hurt a lot of the season by this alliance. I really just don't get why, when you get it, why do you go back and help the other
So
teams?
dumb.
Because you only do that if you owe them something or you're going to get something out of it, like any of that. But if you're going to get to the mat and then lose the alliance, then you just... What?
But let's remember this, right? The logic they use is that there are 3 spots and there's 4 teams. So no matter what, 3 teams are going to go to the final leg.
Yeah.
And so if you really, I think even Riley or Madison said that, right? Ultimately, 6 of them are going to be in it and 2 of them are not. So you could take that approach, I guess, and keep the information for yourself and let everybody else figure it out. And maybe that helps, or maybe it really doesn't, because you're probably going to get an all-aboard flight anyway in the next leg, and you're going to if you get an hour lead, it won't really matter. So at that point, why not just, you've been doing this alliance, just keep it and go with that.
If you...
It's the easiest choice to make, right? It's easier than saying, maybe we should, wait, Hung or hey CHEE, we can get Riley and Madison out right now. Let's just tell Will and James and Gary and D'Angelo, let's get them out. They're the biggest threat. That's a lot harder to do than to do what they did or to say nothing.
It's harder, yeah.
But it would benefit them.
But it would benefit them. But I mean, as book smart as Hung and CHEE are, we've seen them play a lot of problems in the games. Like, we've seen them make a lot of mistakes. This is just another one of them.
What words would we use to describe the way that final challenge played out?
Disappointing. I was so excited at the beginning of this episode because Phil said, don't help anybody. Everybody's on their own. No detours, no roadblocks. We're just going to get through this as fast as you can. Immediately what my brain did was, okay, who's the youngest and the fastest and the smartest? That's who's going to win this. And that's Will and James and Riley and Madison. For me, I was like, Hung and CHEE, good luck keeping up running with these young people. Good luck keeping up with Gary and D'Angelo. They're professional athletes. And so that readjusted everything in my mind. It was a surprise, and I was really excited about that. And then at the very last second, they resorted back to what they've been doing the whole season, which is helping each other out. Everybody's friends. You get rid of who you don't want. And it was predictable again, right at the last minute. So I wasn't a fan of their choice to do that.
Yeah, it was like a thriller movie with like a really great beginning, middle, and then just this terrible ending. It's like the movie It. You ever see It?
No.
Don't watch the last half hour.
I don't like horror movies.
But it does showcase the idea that this alliance is hurting. Like it makes it less fun. It makes it less good. It makes it less drama worthy.
I mean, there was drama there when they decided to edge out Gary and D'Angelo. But we saw it coming, and B, it was kind of mean-spirited in a way.
Good, right? Will and James, when they said good.
Yeah. So, yes, that's drama, but it's like, ooh, well, okay. Not what we were looking for.
Well, let's go to the drama corner here, Nicole.
It wasn't cunning. It was just... It was what it was. You know, like Boston Rob.
Legend.
When he has an alliance, it is well thought. It is methodical. When he makes a move, it's like, oh, wow.
Right.
Like that, oh, that was smart. That was a good move.
Right.
None of these were good moves.
It was the most boring. Is that what you're saying? Like it's the
Yeah,
most boring
it was just like
function of an alliance.
It was just like, oh, let's just not tell these guys.
Yep.
Not like a well thought out plan. So it wasn't exciting. It was just, oh, that's annoying.
Right, because we can't help but put ourselves in Gary and D'Angelo's shoes, right? And you think about, well, we put ourselves probably in everyone's shoes, but especially them because they're the ones that were left out, right? And nobody could figure it out, and nobody could crack the code and have that moment of like, oh, I found it out. I figured what do we have to do here? And then again, like you said, with the sauerkraut, like in this moment, this is the biggest moment of the entire race. It's just taken. We don't even get to see teams figure it out. It's just, oh, one team got it.
Tell everybody.
Tell everybody.
Yep.
Even to see, like, I love the strategy that Riley and Madison had. At
some
some
point,
point,
write it down.
write it
that's
down,
great.
and just how many combinations are there?
I
There's
agree.
only so many. That
I
was
agree.
great.
I agree.
At least that was like, okay, they're thinking. They realize they have all this time. Nobody's figuring anything out. That's a strategy. You know, you're doing a jigsaw puzzle. You eventually take every single piece and you try it in the spot, and eventually you'll figure it out. It's better than, oh, one person figures it out, and now we just tell everyone, and that's
I agree.
Um,
Or if there was like a give and take, if there was like a, hey, if you could tell us that, we will make sure that we both, right? Because
Right.
then you hold something accountable, and you're like, oh wow, here's what's going to propel me to the next episode, rather than here's the clue that's in by, like
end of episode.
end
Yeah.
of it. And that's what it was. I was just perusing the Twitter. I think the awful thing about that episode is that Gary and D'Angelo were willing to work with others. They even said it. And then the others said no.
Well,
And then the other three groups iced them out and worked together and excluded them.
may I
Mayu.
oppose that? That's what Gary and D'Angelo have been saying this entire episode. Hey, let's lean on the alliance. Hey, let's work together. And then it's been, they benefit from it and they don't contribute anything to it. So in a way, I kind of understand where the top three were coming from when it comes to that. And I don't think it was a spur of the moment decision to edge them out. That's kind of what they've been wanting to do for a while.
So the alliances only helped in mental challenges.
True.
Yeah.
Will and James haven't contributed anything to the alliance.
Right.
They haven't
well,
done anything.
no, that's not true. Then they. Oh wait, no. Riley and Madison were the dinner table.
Yeah.
Well, that's what makes Will and James a little bit better players, right?
I think they're mooching off of it just as much. And yeah, Gary and
So then-
D'Angelo aren't so smart in playing the game, right? Like we saw Will and James like go back and read the clue and they got it. But
So then I wonder what makes Will and James so different from Gary and D'Angelo if they're doing the same thing, essentially.
They're not professional athletes.
Is that all? Is that all?
Good.
Do we
I think it's that. I think it's
they
that.
have a name.
I think they're not as intimidating. You know, I think.
But if you really look at them, I would want to compete against them.
you would rather compete against Will and James than Gary
Absolutely
and D'Angelo?
not. Nope, Gary and D'Angelo any day.
Okay, yeah.
Any day.
Right,
I mean,
but-
I think if it's a race between Alana and Leo and Gary and D'Angelo, I think Alana and Leo are going to win.
Depending on what the thing is.
We know that the final leg is going to be all of this.
Okay, there you go. There you go.
But to answer your question was about what makes them the target.
Yeah. If Will and James have been benefiting from the alliance in the exact same way that Gary and D'Angelo have by just benefiting and not contributing, then how come Gary and D'Angelo were targeted?
Because Will and James are better, smarter players. They're the ones that are willing to manipulate that much more. They're the
Then-
best
Yeah.
manipulators.
They
If
are.
that's
They
the case,
absolute-
if that's the
absolutely.
case, then I wish we would have seen more of that. Why did
We
they
have.
How did we
We
see
have. They've done every single U-turn. They've played every single card they could.
The yield.
They did the
They got
yield.
Kaylin
They
and Haley
yelled
to
at
yield.
Kaylin and Haley. Like I definitely see them knowing how to play this game.
and that makes them
I'm not saying that makes them worthy to an alliance at all. If anything, that would make me want them gone.
Yeah,
Correct.
Right?
Correct. Which would make me think, if I'm Hung and CHEE, if they figure it out, get them out.
Exactly. I agree.
But
And if the alliance isn't going to last when you get to the mat, why make the alliance last on the last step before the
45
end of the
minutes
mat?
before- yeah.
Exactly. This is your chance to knock off the best team and the team that has watched every single episode. The team that has been thinking about all of these maps. The team that has played the game probably the best. Because they're not the smartest at all. They are not the strongest at all. But they are in the finals right now.
For a reason.
so what do you think? If Riley and Madison figure it out, not Hung and CHEE. We know what Hung and CHEE did. If Riley and Madison figured out, what do they do? Do they tell everyone?
I think they would have made sure that they were first, but they would have told everyone else.
They would have
I
told
don't know
them
why
after.
Hung and CHEE
Yep.
got gypped out of being first.
Yep.
Right,
That
they
was
came in third.
stupid.
That was
Very
yeah.
stupid. Very
But that's them. That's why they're gonna come in third. They're the nice team that was
I agree.
smart, and probably people realized at some point that they could help them with stuff like exactly like this. But I think Riley and Madison would have done exactly what you said. I think they would have told them, but they would have still.
They would have done it and gotten it done, and then they would have gone back and told them.
How about Will and James? What would Will and James have done?
I think they would have done the same thing.
They would have told them.
But came in first.
Came in first and then told
Will
them.
and James rely entirely on the alliance right now. They're only in the finals because of the alliance.
And they've
They've been
probably
playing everybody.
True.
I don't think any of them would have not told the rest of the alliance.
The only difference is that Hung and CHEE did it very first without thinking of themselves as players in the race.
So then here's the thing: is like, why isn't everyone mad at Riley and Madison for doing it and running to the mat?
Because you said why aren't they?
Because if somebody else got it first, you should let them get it, right?
Well, because they all ended up in the final three. So nobody can be mad. They're all in the same spot. They're exactly where they want to be. And the only people that are upset are Gary and D'Angelo. But they would have been upset no
Hung
matter
and
who would
CHEE
have come
should
in
just
first.
be mad at themselves for
Yeah. But
telling them before doing it themselves.
But if we see that
That's
ruthlessness
stupid.
and we say that it's okay to take the information from Hung, go to show them the cases, and then go to the mat first for the final leg, why do we get upset that Hung was not smart enough to tell Gary, and then Gary and D'Angelo left with their cab?
Oh, and the sour
Yeah, why were we mad?
It's the
No,
same thing.
that's the same exact thing.
Actually,
you get
it's
it and
less.
you run.
It's with less stakes.
It's with less stakes. And Gary and D'Angelo were like, whoa, I thought they were right behind us. They didn't get a taxi. We can't, like, what? We just got a taxi. Rather than saying, thanks for the clue, we'll meet you at the mat. It's the same exact thing. And the same exact mistake that Hung and CHEE made. And the third time they've made this mistake.
Yeah.
I just think that if let's go to Gary and D'Angelo, like let's think about them. If they figure it out, if they get it right, what do? Let's play that out for a second.
Not tell anybody. They're going to the mat.
They wouldn't have told anybody because the rules were laid out at the beginning, strongly encouraged not to help anybody. And they are such athletes, right? They're such players. It's like, okay, this is how the game works. This is how we're going to play the game. They wouldn't have thought they wouldn't have thought twice about it. They would have said, okay, we did the thing and now we're going to the mat because we are natural winners, and that's what they would have done. I don't think that the alliance would have meant enough to have their first place title at stake. I don't think they would have told anybody.
It would have been the most interesting if they would have been the ones to crack the code.
Yeah.
Because that would have created authentic struggle in which Will and James, Riley and Madison, Hung and CHEE we would have got a preview of actual cutthroat racing.
Yeah.
Nobody would have been able to
Yes.
help anyone. It would have been an actual race. Who's going to figure it out? They wouldn't have shared anything in that moment. And I can't help but feel a little bit, you used the word, Lizzy used disappointed. I would say we were kind of like robbed.
Yeah.
We were robbed of a better ending to that episode, to that whole major arc of the season. Right?
Yeah, I mean, yes, but I would even look bigger than just this episode. I really think, I think the Sauerkraut Challenge was one of the best challenges ever on The Amazing Race. And to say that it was two people who got it and then told everybody.
Yeah.
Ruined it. We were robbed. We were robbed of good television.
When I spoke with...
I think we should sue.
Yeah, right?
When I talked to Ishwar and Aparna and I asked them how they would re-engineer the race,
Cool.
some changes
That's
they
a
would...
cool
That's a great question.
They are engineers.
There you go.
But when I asked them that, Ishwar talked about the alliances. And actually, they both talked about it, actually. Putting in some stipulations into the clues, into a leg or a detour, whatever it is, at whatever level, that you can't help other people. Because then they mention the sauerkraut. And other teams have talked about that as well. And I think it's a good point.
I think next season, God willing,
Yeah.
There
Come on,
is a next
33.
season.
We got two teams ready and
I
willing
think-
to do it. We'll do it with masks on. Are you kidding?
given the circumstances of this season, it will change
Yeah.
how they produce the next season.
Absolutely.
So what are the changes?
I think there will be more rules in place or situations that they create
Yeah.
that prevent alliances.
I agree.
That
I
break up alliances.
I think the opposite. I actually think that you make chances for people to help each other in the race, which means you control those.
That's what an alliance is.
No. By producer's standpoint. If you put in chances for people to help each other. Listen, you know what I thought was great TV? When Alana and Leo helped Kaylin and Haley.
At the
Because,
bus.
and then Kaylin and Haley said, we owe them. Great. How are we going to do this? Boom, we're giving the U-turn. That is smart. But then it's over.
Right.
So you need ways to get that alliance feel,
So-
but the producers control it. So by putting in ways in the race that people can help each other.
So a
It
leg by
limits
leg
it
alliance instead of a full season.
Exactly.
I think the alliances got out of control.
I agree. Yeah.
And it got to the point where it was bigger than the producers could manipulate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is reality TV at the end of the day. It's not just a race. It's what people are watching at home. That's why we're having this conversation.
Aparna and Ishwar also mentioned that in other seasons they had legs, or maybe it wasn't other seasons, or this was one of her ideas. I don't remember. I'll have to look back, but having a leg where you switch partners,
Oh, God.
Oh my God.
right? So Ishwar would be with Hung for a leg,
Wow.
and CHEE would be with Aparna,
Wow.
and they'd have to race, and however they would determine it, you'd have to then help some other team.
Wow.
And in another season, season 10, there's another type of game twist. I won't give it away.
Thank you.
That puts some teams in a position of having to help other teams as
Yeah.
well. And so by doing that, I didn't want to spoil it. Josh and Lizzy haven't watched season 10 yet. And it's, anyway. So, but that's a good idea too, to kind of spice it up a little bit. I mean, I don't know how sustainable that is more than just a leg or even a challenge perhaps in a leg. I mean, the reason we don't like this alliance is because it was boring or because it just ruined the show? Like if Will and James would have turned on Riley and Madison, or Riley and Madison would have got the clue from Hung and CHEE and then said, don't tell Will and James, let's get Gary and D'Angelo because they're slower, or they're not going to complete this, or they're not as strong, or whatever reason they would have gave, and then Will and James were locked out. Are we having this conversation?
No.
That would have been good television.
Yeah.
But is that a better alliance? Are we hating alliances the same way, or are we encouraging them more, or is this, at what point is this Survivor?
Well, I liked what you said about working with another team. And I think it would be really interesting if you got paired up with another team for a challenge. And you had to work with another team to get past it. And then you could, like, break up, but you had to work together. And, like, then you put, like, the Will and James and the Gary and D'Angelo. And the only way you're going to get out of this is if you work together. And then you see that clash, and then you see Hung and CHEE and Riley and Madison either take the lead or whatever. Like, but then like, oh wow, we owe it to this person because Gary and D'Angelo were like, great, let's do. Do you know? And I think if the producers control having to work together and alliances, then they can control how those alliances play out. My question: are these three teams the teams that deserve to be in the final three?
I think I would have liked to have had a little more variety as far as like strengths and even demographic goes. My power rankings were very clear. Double guy team, male and female team, and then double female team. So we've got my top three rankings were Will and James, Alana and Leo, Kelly and Levon. You had extreme athletes, extreme brainiacs, and then Will and James who were super fans. They make good TV. That's three completely different types, three completely different demographics, like different types of people. I think that would have been great. I feel like the more different your competition is, the more exciting it is to watch. And with this, I feel like Riley and Madison and Will and James are very equally matched. And Hung and CHEE have gotten here because they're incredibly smart and they've made this alliance. I feel like that's helped them a lot. So...
Nicole, do Hung and CHEE deserve to be in the final three?
Give it to them. Come on.
I guess, but they don't deserve. They don't deserve to win.
All right.
I guess they deserve
Lizzy
third.
did that.
What?
Didn't you do a season where you picked them in last place and then they won?
That was...
Season 6. First out.
They had...
Oh, it was the two Jewish
you said
guys
them to win.
from
Oh, that was
No,
it.
see the opposite.
It's
You
happened.
picked them to win, and they
Somebody
came out. Avi and Joe.
Oh, yeah.
Avi and Joe,
So funny.
the Staten Island hot
End
dog
of leg
people.
1. Okay, well, that's fine.
I mean, if you look at it through the lens of we've watched 11 episodes, yeah, these are the right three teams, because at the end of the day, the difference is that they were smart enough to make the alliance and make a sub-alliance after the Mind 5 worked out, and most of all, stick with it. They stuck with it. And that's the nature of the game, right? You inevitably, at the end of the day, at the end of the race, there's going to be three teams that have a chance. And so if they help each other, it's not like they get voted out or anything like that.
Yeah,
like
we were saying that, yeah.
So because at the end of the day, there's going to be three teams. So why not put our heads together and stay together and make this happen? And if we have to do 5 and then we'll break from the 5 and become 3, it's just smarter to do. But it's hard for people to stay aligned in Survivor, but maybe it's not as hard in The Amazing Race because of the nature of you just don't have to come in last, and there's nobody that gets voted off, and that's it.
Who would Gary vote for to win the race?
I think you would vote for Hung and CHEE.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Because they helped him.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think that's enough. Because I think they saw probably Will and James and Riley and Madison as the bigger competitors. And as the competitors that they are, I think they'd like to see mom and dad and the 3 kids live happily ever after with that.
I also think Hung and CHEE are portrayed as less catty than Riley and Madison and Will and James.
Right, it's never their idea to shut out anybody.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They'll go along with it, but they're
Right.
not the ones generating the
Implementing the plan, yeah.
idea. Yeah. That definitely affects it as well. But if you look at it from a bigger standpoint, to go back to your question, Josh, is this the right final 3?
Okay. I don't see Jerry and Frank in the final 3. Like, there's some people that you just don't... I don't see Michelle and Victoria in the final 3. I don't see Nathan and Cody in the final 3.
I think any combination of the final 4 that we had was the right final 4. And then the right final 3.
I would even say 5.
Yeah.
I mean, Aparna and Ishwar could absolutely be in that final episode.
See, I don't
know.
No. They
don't think so?
I asked them, I said, what was the difference between finishing 5th and finishing 10th? And they talked about, being able to accomplish tasks and navigate.
Sure.
And that gets you from not finishing 10th into the top half of the whole thing.
Okay. So then,
And then I asked
them...
I asked them, what's the difference between finishing 5th and finishing 2nd or 1st? And it's attention to detail. It's reading the damn clue.
Remember that art gallery challenge? Aparna was
So
terrible.
She was terrible. Right. You're right.
Yeah.
So you can't not have that good of an attention to detail and win
It's
it.
true.
And that's what makes the difference. And if the detail is popping out of the yurt in Kazakhstan and screaming to Kayla and Haley, use your yield, then that's a detail that you can't overlook. If it's getting the 20-minute yield back in the mine, in the salt mine, instead of the 10-minute,
Huge.
That's a huge deal. If it's in that moment saying, hey, why don't the 5 of us, we're here, we beat everybody else here, let's just work together. There's a detail. And then sticking with it, huge detail.
So should the team that played the game the best win? Because that would be Will and James. They've played the game better than any other
If
team.
we were voting, yeah, I would put their name down.
I would say yes, too.
They've played the best game.
Yeah.
But is that what the race is?
That's
'Cause
what I'm
this isn't
asking.
Survivor.
Yeah, exactly.
And the question in Survivor always becomes, do you vote, does the jury vote for the person who played the best game or the person they like the most? That's the question, right? I don't know that we like Will and James the most,
Yeah.
but we know they played the best game. Doesn't mean they've gotten first place every time.
See, to me, them playing the game well makes me like them.
Okay.
It's like, even if they're catty to some people or they leave people out, it's like, why did you come on The Amazing Race? To win, to play a good game because you're a super fan? You're doing well? Great, I'm a fan of yours.
And
And that's what I got from the very beginning.
And we haven't heard that from the other 2 finalists.
How do you feel about Gary and D'Angelo then? Because they came in with that exact attitude the entire time.
It's true.
They
But
only
did
wanted
they
to
play
win.
that good of a game? Have they been as strategic as Will and James have been?
No.
In
But
regard
did you
to
like-
No,
there
but
you
did
go.
you like them?
Did you like
because
them?
they've always wanted to win, and that's what you're saying. If you're
Yeah,
going to put everything towards winning.
as a competitor in The Amazing Race, they were a good team. They made good TV. They were part of the alliance for a little while.
Did you like them?
As competitors, yeah.
But you didn't like them.
You didn't like them.
You won't say it.
That's not what you asked.
No, he's saying, you know what he's saying.
No, they
Your
weren't-
logic of why you liked Will and James is the same logic of why you should like Gary and D'Angelo.
Exactly.
And so as competitors, yes.
Exactly.
But as
Thank
a
you.
team, just by themselves, no. Not as much as I liked Will and James.
The drama.
Nicole is smiling
You love
like
it.
the Grinch when his heart grows to the size.
It's on right now.
That's all right. We mentioned Gary and D'Angelo. Let's just talk about, is the next leg less exciting, more exciting, as exciting without them?
Less.
We'll see. If the producers do something where nobody can help each other, then I'll be interested to see how that goes. But if everyone's neck and neck together, then no, it's not going to be exciting.
So it's got nothing to do with them. It's got to do with the alliance and the crap with that.
The game, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now there's no more. That's it. They can't help each other anymore. There's
been-
only one winner.
They've been saying that for the last 3 episodes.
But now it's finally,
So we'll
it
see.
means something.
Yeah, so we'll see.
So what are they going to do? Duct tape friggin' Hung's mouth closed from telling somebody what to do.
Well, then she just loses. It's her loss.
So is it more exciting, less exciting, as exciting?
More exciting.
Oh.
Because now there's no more alliance.
That's fair.
So-
That's fair.
Truly every man for themselves.
So if in the final episode everybody races the exact same way they've been racing, which is holding hands, singing Kumbaya, walking across the mat together, if that happens in the final leg, will you still say it's as exciting?
Well, no, that can't happen.
Okay.
There can only be one winner.
I agree, but that's why I said we'll
I
see.
appreciate watching strategy.
Yeah.
I want to see moves made that are methodical and well thought out.
Yeah.
That when I say I want to see betrayal and deceit, that's what I mean.
So this
Not this, oh, let's all help each other.
Yeah.
That's not it.
Do you think that in future seasons it could get to a point of that level where there's an alliance and then a switch of the alliance?
I hope so.
I don't know if it works that way. Josh, you said it would be less exciting without Gary and D'Angelo. Why?
Well, I love the tension between how much Will and James hates Gary and D'Angelo. Like, I love seeing that underdog who's like not. They have the tenacity to fight. They have the physical ability. Like, they are in it to win it. And when you have, if you had three teams who are all in it to win it, then it would be more exciting. Especially the pride. Like, that's the whole point of this long-lasting season, is that you're building up to this moment of tension. And now we actually have a moment of love going into this weird moment of tension where there's no tension. And so that's why I think it's less exciting. If you had more tension from Gary and D'Angelo there, yeah, of course they're going to push Will and James off the bicycle when they're riding next to them. Like, that's what they would do because they want to win. When you actually are friends with these people, you're going to be nice, but you're not going to go all out.
But even that, it's so limited because you can't kick somebody off the bike. You just don't tell them the flag's order, right? You just slowly. I think Lizzy said this. Like, you just slowly stop telling them information.
Yeah.
But that's not exciting.
No.
That leads to us being like,
Exactly.
us being the disappointed
Exactly.
kid on Christmas who gets, oh, you got a new pair of slacks. That's great. It's a nice gift. It was wrapped in really nice shiny paper, nice bow, and then you open it, and it's a pair of slacks, and that's fine. I feel like that's what...
I love a good pair of slacks. If anyone wants to get me a good pair of slacks, I would be very happy to open them.
So let's talk about the final challenge then. Was it the best challenge of the entire season?
I think the disappointing part, it was a great challenge. To me, the best challenges are the challenges that are so close. Like, it's like, oh, everybody has a complete chance and you just, and I would argue that the sauerkraut challenge was better because it was all in everyone's hands and everyone was like on an even playing ground. I felt like this was, by the time they got to the point where nobody knew it, it just became a guessing game and that wasn't fun either. The music concept was brilliant.
Definitely.
I would have expected and I would have hoped that they would have known their flags better. That was the biggest problem to me. Because if they knew the flags, it would have been a different challenge.
Will and James and I think Riley and Madison did know their flags, but they didn't read their clue. So they just had them in the wrong order.
So that's exciting to me.
Yeah.
Right? That makes it a good challenge that they didn't read the clue and do it. But all of these other, let's work together, like that stuff just overwhelmed it.
I also kind of liked how they just failed. There was a point where they didn't know. And it made you think, I don't know about you guys, I was thinking, what if somebody just took the penalty right now?
That's what I was thinking
I
too.
thought about that too, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I was thinking 4 hours because of Boston Rob, shout out. But it was only 2 hours, which we learned. Mm-hmm. And then I don't know how long they were there. I'd be curious to ask, and I will ask Gary and D'Angelo, how long they were there trying to figure it out. And if that ever crossed their minds in the beginning or not.
You get on those messages now.
If it were me in that challenge, I would have spent exactly how long it would have taken me to go through every scenario. And when I felt defeat, I would have taken the penalty. Because the longer you try and figure it out, then the more time you're wasting.
Yeah, but I would have read the clue again before I took the
Well,
penalty.
yes. Do everything you can possibly do. If you still can't figure it out, then you take the penalty. Especially if you can see everyone else in that boat. Because same with Boston Rob. It's like if you're one team and you take the penalty and you're like, this is so completely hopeless, even if you're 30 seconds ahead, that's a leg up that you have.
Right, because if they do it, Gary and D'Angelo, if they take, or if Will and James take the penalty, all they have to do is convince one other team to do it,
Yep.
and then they're going to beat them.
Yep.
So it's almost, again, would that have been a good strategy or not?
No, because if you're another team, you're not going to do it unless you can convince a third team.
Well, with this freaking alliance, all three of them would have just said, okay, go, penalty.
And Gary and D'Angelo take the 2-hour penalty, kind of sealing their fate. Were you surprised or not surprised to see them go out that way in that challenge?
Not surprised. I think Gary already gave up. We saw it. He said after the 3 teams left, he was like, I don't even care anymore. I don't even care about the show anymore.
D'Angelo or Gary?
Oh, sorry, D'Angelo. You're right.
Yeah, D'Angelo, he had it. And he, at the end, seemed like a very sore loser.
Yeah, good luck with your interview there.
He
Tread lightly.
said he regretted it. Was it a good experience? No.
Mm-hmm.
He could have paid to have that trip. Which is just, as a viewer, you don't want to listen to that. And I know as someone who would die to be in his shoes, Tom, that must have been painful for you to hear.
Yeah.
Especially since they were your number one team this whole time.
I'll get to my thoughts, but I want to hear everybody else's first. After the whole exchange at the mat, after the penalty, and Gary and D'Angelo check in last.
I was shocked. I knew he was bitter. I knew he was upset. I would have been too. But, I can't justify saying any of that.
I agree. I want to also point out that I don't think that Will and James said was right either. They're like, you're the final 3 teams. Good. Glad that Gary and D'Angelo are not here.
Well, yeah, Phil said something about, there's only one team missing, Gary and D'Angelo, and then he said,
Good.
yeah.
And that also turned me off.
D'Angelo says that the race sucked.
They aired it too.
Yeah, they did. I thought, again, I understand how he feels. It's, you are on this race, and he is on it for one reason.
Mm-hmm.
What is the reason? To win, right? You can play in the NFL and you can play sports, and I feel like they're athletes, and they think about one thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
They think about winning.
Mm-hmm.
The money doesn't matter. I bet you if you asked Boston Rob, what was more important, the $1 million or winning Survivor? What would he have said?
The title.
Title.
D'Angelo Williams just posted, just finished the finale of The Amazing Race. Next Wednesday is the bonus feature at 8 p.m. The show is about him. Now it's over. The finale happened. If you want to watch next week, that's the bonus episode.
Well,
Oh, I see.
clearly it was... Yeah, that's a...
With the caption, I do not concede. Hell no, we won't go.
He's still bitter.
He's still bitter.
That's what I was just about to bring up. It's like, well, it's been 2 years. Maybe he's changed his mind.
No, you don't forget losses like that. I understand. You know, if you talk to any athlete, they're not going to tell you about the ones they won. They'll tell you about the worst losses. They'll talk. The 07 Patriots are going to talk about that one game against the Giants when they lost in the Super Bowl, and that's probably. I bet you if you ask Tom Brady his game he regrets most, he would say that, or the game that sticks out most would be that exactly.
Well, and
he would not be like, "Oh, I got to the Super Bowl." Like, no, he lost, and that sucks.
Yeah.
he
Period.
hasn't been able to talk about it.
Yeah.
So
True.
he's been holding all this anger in. And now he can finally be like, "Damn, this was bullshit."
D'Angelo, open invitation to let it all out, my man. ReRACEables Podcast. We'd love to have you. We'd love to get into the nitty gritty, and you can let it fly. But I understand, and I think that's. I mean, Josh, you played sports at the levels we played them at. You played sports?
As an 8th grader, yeah.
That doesn't count. And Nicole played
JV.
Yeah, that doesn't count. Ultimately, there's a level of competition that you get to. I mean, I can only imagine what the NFL is like. But I know that those guys get there for a reason. They get there because they are the most elite level of competitive, and that's all they care about is winning.
Can we also talk about the better you are, the more money you make, like the more you could sustain your career, like your income.
Yeah.
So when you tie it to that sense of winning is much more than just pride.
Yeah.
It's literally how you're going to live your life.
Right, and change others.
Yeah.
And create foundations like he has. Mm-hmm. He wasn't just a player that played in the league. Mm-hmm. He was a Pro Bowler. Like, he was a legit running back.
Yeah.
He was a legit asset to
All-star?
a team.
All-star.
Yeah. And that is because he is ultra competitive. He puts his 3 words were far and away the best, most clever, by a million miles, a natural winner. Mm-hmm. That alone, if you go back, reread or read for the first time the original power rankings for the season 32 preseason show, I put them number 1 and I wrote Gary and D'Angelo. They're athletes, whatever, and then I put his 3 words and then I wrote mic drop because that's it. That's all I want that above anything else. That plays so much into it. And I'm not shocked that he reacted that way. Of course, it's like one of those screeching moments where everything's been so hunky-dory and happy-go-lucky in every single thing. And that's great, right? I talked to every single team so far that's been eliminated. And it's been nice to hear the connection they have. Mm-hmm. Because, again, connection is something we're lacking here and we're seeking in this COVID quarantine situation we're in. But to hear him say that it sucked right to Phil's face and just in that moment was awesome. Yeah. I loved it because it's just, I get it. Believe me, I get why. Yeah. I get it. And it pisses me off because, like, God, I would love to be in that spot. And, yeah, the comment about he could go and do it. But I understand why he said it that way. But I love that he showed the competitiveness that I love. That's why I rooted for him when he was on the Panthers, on my team. To know that he was playing for my team with that passion, with that fire, that's awesome. That is awesome. Mm-hmm. And that's why I had those guys first. And Gary was the perfect compliment to him. Yes. Gary was, kind of his, a good compliment. He was softened the blow of D'Angelo's kind of fury at times. He's the right partner, also a standout player, also had an extended career, super competitive. Yeah. And look, it's like D'Angelo said too, like only one team's going to win. Yeah. And everybody else can get to the mat at the end and say, 2 teams next week are going to say, well, we're really happy we got here and we finished. Who cares? Like that is great. Yeah, sure. That's great. It's an accomplishment, but guess what? You didn't win. Mm-hmm. And that's where Gary and D'Angelo are coming from. And I understand that, and I'm a competitive person. And even on my small little speck of dust, show of Expedition Online, I was bitter. I didn't want anybody to win. I wanted to win, right? It didn't matter to me who wins, Can
we also point out the way he went out? It wasn't like they were both sprinting and the other team sprinted out him.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up.
They screwed him over. They really did. Like, they stuck together, didn't tell Gary and D'Angelo the clue. Gary's now sitting on a bench for 2 hours knowing he already lost. Yeah. And then has to come to the finish line. Of course he's going to be pissed off.
I wonder if Gary and D'Angelo, to this day, hold a grudge against the 3 teams in the alliance.
I think D'Angelo does. Because you don't see him in the pictures, a lot of the pictures that they post. It's like, they've gotten together. They've had these reunions. I'm sure he's probably there. Or maybe he's not. I don't know. But Gary is there. Gary hosts it, and you even hear like when D'Angelo says the comments he does, Gary's like, well, I had a good time and I enjoyed it. And that's Gary. I mean, that's just his personality. Yeah. And that's what makes you love him. But I think D'Angelo, that's just how he is. And that's how he became an all-pro or Pro Bowl level professional athlete in the NFL.
And in your recent interview with Haley and Kaylin,
wow, we really screwed that one up.
3 times.
I haven't, for the record.
You asked them who would you least want to be teamed.
No, I asked them who the wrong choice of partner would be. That's
without hesitation, they both said D'Angelo.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah. Check out ReRACEables Podcast, episode 14, Kaylin and Haley, for the full interview. But
yeah.
They said that. They said he's a strong competitor, but he's, impatient, and...
They said impatient like 4 times.
Yeah. And it's understandable. I think the race does that to you, though, doesn't it? You hurry, and then you stop, and you have to figure this thing out, and if you don't know, you get frustrated, you become more impatient, it kind of snowballs from there.
I'm glad we have such athletes on this podcast. I'm so not, and that's not a world I'm familiar with, so I can't help but have it was such a great experience sort of mindset about this show. And the last thing on my mind is you race to win, to have the title. You don't even care about the money. You don't even care about traveling because he wanted the win. You don't think so?
I think he wanted to win, but he wanted to win to donate the money.
That too.
Like, the money is not... winning isn't about him winning.
No,
It's about making the world a better place winning.
My point is that he's
it's
such
a combination.
He's such a competitor and such an athlete that winning,
Yep.
because he's a good athlete, was the most important thing.
That's correct.
Yeah,
And that is not a point of view that I come from.
Yeah, sure.
All I'm saying is that I appreciate the fact that we have 4 very different brains that are able to weigh in on this. Because you've said a lot of things that I wouldn't have thought to think that I don't agree with. That's not my first instinct. And so that's why I've said, what I've said, because I don't think about it that way.
Yeah, and that's why you guys had that team 6th.
Exactly.
And 7th.
Yeah.
And that's why I had them first.
Obviously, yeah.
That's why I had them first.
And I have gay theater boys first. So that absolutely tracks for me.
That's funny.
Let's talk about the format. We had the city sprint. There was no roadblocks, no detours, only route infos, some challenges along the way, but it was all on foot or local transportation. How do we feel about the structure of it, the whole leg? Josh?
The first part I was very, 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 very frustrated by. I was frustrated by the sense that somebody else was driving and they did not control their destiny.
You mean the bus where they
The
had to
bus,
get
somebody else is driving.
Exactly.
And no matter how close you put your arm out, no matter how loud you yelled, you still weren't going to get there if your driver wasn't going to get there. And that is unfair. That is unfair.
I don't think that that's any different than being unlucky getting a slow cab driver.
But you chose that cab driver.
Yeah, but you have no way
Not
of knowing
necessarily true. There's
how
marked cabs
fast
and
that's going to
things
be.
like
Which
Do
one
you
are
know
you
what I
gonna
mean?
Or if you pick a cab that got a flat tire.
Or if your boat's engine stops in the middle of the ocean.
Okay.
I don't see it as any different.
Okay, great.
Yep.
But it's still like, oh, okay, this guy didn't drive close enough to Romero in the middle of this complete and utter chaos.
It's one thing if you go from 3rd to 5th place when there's 10 teams left. It's another thing when you're in the final 2 episodes and they just say that it's up to somebody else to decide whether you're going to be there or not.
I understand.
That's unfair.
I just think that an element of luck is something that's always going to be
Absolutely.
a factor on this
Absolutely.
show.
I agree.
It comes in many forms.
And I think it's more forgiving when it is earlier in the season.
Yeah.
Or earlier in the leg.
Well, and then it was.
Yeah. Which I think added to the drama of people flip-flopping.
Hung and CHEE and Will and James were in the back.
How about Romero? Can we have a few thoughts on that guy? The dancing crossing guard traffic guy who's just out there among 4 million cars and buses and motorcycles, and he's just doing his best Michael Jackson impersonation.
He's great.
Do you think he's really out there, though?
Mm-hmm.
I do.
Mm-hmm.
Doing what?
That. He's doing that.
Doing what? He's not directing traffic. It looked like complete mayhem.
Well, no one got in a wreck.
It's true.
Isn't that amazing?
What are your thoughts on the naked cowboy?
Yeah,
He's not
well-
even playing music. What is he? It's so cold out. Doing what?
Guy makes $100,000 standing there like an idiot. What the
The
hell?
most famous man in New York.
Unbelievable. He should get it. Those two should
Romero
cross
and
paths.
naked cowboy. Oh yeah.
Romero's
Get them in a
doing
room
himself
together.
service.
Maybe on Zoom.
The high heel race. Josh, you asked me to flag this.
Oh. I flagged it. It's not even about this part. It's about when they cut to the interviews. Because we know that those interviews are done after they get back. Like after they finish the leg, they
Right.
then interview and talk about what happened in that leg. And when we saw Riley and Madison's cut to them talking, it was bright out. And then when we cut to Gary and D'Angelo, it was dark out. So I knew that Riley and Madison had gotten there earlier. And Gary and D'Angelo were going to be later.
He has pointed this out before. I don't know if it's ever been on here, but that's definitely a way that
It spoils the episode.
Yeah, a way that he/now we have come to predict what happens in the episode, because you can tell how much time has passed by whether or not it's dark.
I mean, if you have the edit of two teams running towards the finish line, but one person's in a taxi and it's dark out and the other team is like sunset, you're like...
But they're trying to do that editing where they
This
make it
isn't
seem
even
like a
close.
neck and neck race. It's like, no, actually...
It's not even like I'm like trying to predict the winner. It's like... It's just in my head now that
just
like I
so
see it.
detail-oriented.
I'm so detail oriented that I see it and I'm like, damn it, I spoiled the whole episode for myself. Fast forward to the end.
But do they even need those interviews?
Yes.
No.
Oh.
Okay.
Why, yes.
Well, I feel like a lot of times they're just reiterating what we're already viewing
Yes.
or watching. It's unnecessary.
They're not as bad as the
You're right.
challenge.
Like, you stole the words out of my brain.
MTV, if you're listening, listen up.
Because we'll be watching the challenge, and someone will be narrating what we're watching, and it's person who's just irrelevant,
Yeah.
and we're just like, why is this person talking? Who cares? Shut up. We don't want to hear from you. Can we just watch the show?
It's brutal. It's brutal.
Can we just watch how the challenge played out?
It's like, oh, Lizzy just got up and got a glass of water.
So then I got up and I got a glass of water.
Yeah. But you say, yes.
I say yes. Yeah, no, I think it gives an insight into the episode. And I sometimes think that there are fruitful nuggets of information that I'm interested by.
I think on TV shows where it's about the thought process and the communication, then yes, confessionals are fun and they're fun to have. Like The Bachelorette, just out of the blue, random example. But for The Amazing Race, where it's all action based and you want to see how people are doing, then they do, don't help as much. They don't help as much. So I think it depends on the show.
Agreed.
No on the challenge.
Bachelorette,
Maybe.
fruitful
So
nuggets
good.
galore.
Oh,
Yeah,
we
I
love,
love
we
fruitful
love.
nuggets. I would love to
We
know
love the fruitful
all of the
nuggets.
shitty
good.
things you're thinking about a person while you're smiling and nodding at them. Yes, that's so That's
Exactly.
great. But on The Amazing Race, it's like, I'm running in heels, and then it shows you running in heels. It's like, yeah, we get it. We get it.
Yep.
All right. Predictions going into the final three. Last thing.
Dang.
Who wins it all and why?
Will and James win it all. They're my number one. Riley and Madison come in close second. And Hung and CHEE, I think we can all agree, are a solid third place team.
I agree completely with that prediction.
Thank you so much.
And I didn't think going into this evening I would have said Riley and Madison were going to win it all, but I think it's going to be Will and James.
To point out, I have Riley and Madison ranked the highest. I have Hung and CHEE ranked the highest. So I will win if what?
You have Hung and CHEE ranked the lowest.
Well,
the highest.
the highest to win.
Oh, between all of us.
Yes.
I see. Okay, yeah.
And so if Riley and Madison or Hung and CHEE win, I would win The Amazing Race season 32.
And
the final 3.
which you already did win.
Yeah, which I did. Thank you.
What did we say
what
was
did I
the
do?
prize?
I get to choose dinner.
You did.
Oh.
Oh, I get to choose dinner.
I thought for a second we agreed and put money down on it, and I got so excited. That didn't happen. Never mind.
So I'm rooting strongly for Hung and CHEE, Riley and Madison. I do think that Riley and Madison are going to win, though. I think like they are very smart. They are very athletic.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm flabbergasted how Will and James just didn't know the flags. That is
unsuper fan.
That is a staple. Like even if you don't know the world flags, like we saw there was a flagpole challenge where they had to like put every flag at every country, and that's crazy. That is crazy.
It was every country that
But-
they had gone to.
Oh, okay. Well, okay.
Still
Well,
10 flags.
So then I was gonna say, you should at least know it's coming that you need to know every flag from where you're going.
Right. Wherever you go, make sure you
Just like know it.
know the flag.
Yeah, and I could get like not remembering the music from this thing, like that's one thing, but to not know the flags, like you're not a super
And don't
fan.
they have on their passports like different visas, so they have a sense of at least going into it the different places they could go?
But these are people who don't even read the clue. So what are you
All
what are you
right.
gonna say?
You're right. I think I've said Will and James will win. I think they're still gonna win. I think
Wow.
Riley and Madison. I had them second. I think, and it's on record. If Gary and D'Angelo aren't on my favorite football team and their competitiveness and NFL players, 1,000,000 out of 1,000,000 times I'm putting Riley and Madison in the one slot. It was kind of a homer pick. We said that way back before episode 1.
Mm-hmm.
But I still think Will and James are going to win. I think Will and James are the most manipulative, the most strategic, and I think somehow, some way, they'll find a little wrinkle and sneak away and blend in or not. Whatever it is, in New Orleans, a lot of colors, a lot of maybe mass Mardi Gras, who knows what's going on, but they'll sneak away somehow and get to the 50-yard line at the Superdome first and win the $1 million. I think also last thing, just Lizzy, you talked about the diversity in your top 3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, guy, girl teams.
Yeah.
You got pro athletes, you got super fans, and you got mom and dad. I think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. Thank you for listening. If you missed any of the prior episodes of the ReRACEables, go to tribalcouncilblog.com. Check that out. And we'll see you next week for the finale. Thanks for listening.